Board of Supervisors, April 28th meeting to order. Let us stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. At this particular time, I'd like to welcome our attorney, Jim Cornwell, back. How you doing, Mr. Cornwell, attorney? You out there? He's muted, okay. All right, okay.
Yeah,
I'm
you
gonna
don't want a
open the meeting
lawyer
up
that's
for
mute.
public input session.
I'm,
And you have 3 minutes to speak. When you get down to 2 minutes, I'll raise this sign. And that means you have 1 more minute left. Okay,
Turn up your lights. We can barely hear back here.
okay. Can you hear now? Testing,
Doesn't sound like it's-
testing, testing,
Volumes. Hello?
There, that's,
testing. Can you hear me?
no. You need to be closer to the mic.
All right, can you hear me now?
Better.
Okay, all right. Okay, first one that signed up is Mr. Albert Paubert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors, Albert Pollard in Irvington, Virginia. Just as a former, hey, Craig, good to see you up there. And Bill, Ms. Bale. As a former elected official, I just know that folks don't always say thank you. And so I just wanted to drop by and thank you all for the past, I think the past 20 years, because I know when Pat Frere was on the board, we've talked about getting new schools, upgrading the school system, and also getting public access. You know, and it sort of got to be like the weather. Everybody was talking about it, nobody was doing anything about it. But you all have made significant investments. I know there's still a little bit more wrangling to do on the school, but it sounds like everybody's on the same page. And I just wanted to drop by and thank you all. It's just going to make the county the type of place, better place to live for all the carpenters and nurses and cashiers and all the folks who keep the county running for all of our good retired folks. So thank you so much.
I'd like to say, yes. I'd like to say thank you to you as well, because thinking about like the school system sometimes, we get cursed out, fussed at, trotted upon, and one parent will come in and thank us. That made it all worthwhile. So thank you very much. All right, so next one is Mr. Julian, Bruce Julian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm also here to express my appreciation. I'm in Bill Smith's district in Weems, Virginia, the Metroplex of Weems, Virginia. And I want to thank the supervisors all, particularly Bill Lee, for demonstrating your support to provide all the citizens and visitors the opportunity to enjoy the water resources that wrap this county. I'm chairman of the group that you appointed, and to implement this critical item in the comprehensive plan and the Board of Supervisors strategic plan. We are aggressively working to provide you with recommendations and to also secure state and federal grants for the planning and development of these numerous sites. So talk is cheap, but we're really moving forward now, and your investment is going to cause a lot of good things to happen. I just want to say thanks for that budget and your support to get, we're going to meet Jason in a couple of weeks. Thanks.
It's all closed. The property's closed.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. I really appreciate all the time you put into this. I mean, because you put a lot of hours in, and you got a pretty good committee now that you're working with. So thank you for your time and effort.
Yes. I believe this, Mr., and forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Mr. I think this is Douglas Adler?
Yes,
Did I
sir.
pronounce that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, members of the board. My name is Douglas Adler. I live in Whitestone, Virginia. I'm here with a group of property owners. Please raise your hand to talk about asking the board to consider strengthening controls over short-term rentals within areas zoned for residential use. A short-term rental is a commercial lease of property that is less than 30 days. Airbnb and Vrbo are not commercial short-term rentals. They are platforms by which people make reservations and search for areas to stay. Airbnb is a publicly listed corporation headquartered in California, had $4.81 billion of revenue in 2021. What are some of the issues? Most recently on Easter morning, tragic occurrence in Pittsburgh at a commercial short-term rental booked through Airbnb. There was a 200-plus person drinking party at which 2 teens were shot and killed, 9 others wounded. Other public safety concerns include additional traffic going too fast on unfamiliar narrow roads, strain on water resources for wells and septic systems, animals off leash, trespassing. Closer to home, recently the National Weather Service warned about dangers of outside fire use, specifically in Lancaster County, including cigarette disposal. Question is whether participants in short-term rentals got that message. There was an article recently in a national newspaper about the issues involving short-term rentals. The comments were overwhelmingly negative. Lack of affordable housing, especially teachers and nurses, and loss of community. Lack of interest in supporting local schools and services. Additional noise, more trash, loss of security, loss of privacy, and loss of quiet enjoyment. In the March 24th edition of the Rappahannock Record Irvington Supplement, the sales manager for Estates and Homes said that Lower Lancaster County was a high-growth region, underserved for houses, particularly in terms of short-term rentals. With this as background, the property owners have a number of questions for the board to consider. I see my time is almost up. I'll just say that
I can see what you plan on going in. Go ahead and finish.
Thank you, sir. Is the board aware of the growing concern of property owners within Lancaster County regarding the number of commercial short-term rentals? What is the board's vision for the county over the next 10 years? Is it to have a cohesive neighborly community or areas full of transients who are here temporarily? Does the board have an accurate gauge on additional burdens these rentals place on the county's emergency services, law enforcement, and other administrative functions? Has the board considered the environmental impact of residents being operated as short-term rentals with a use that severely burdens septic and water supply systems designed for less intensive use? There are nearby jurisdictions who are doing something to address these issues. The town of Irvington, for example, has created a newly planning commission to study them. Others, such as Matthews County, Virginia, has new regulations. And of course, Pittsburgh is now added to that group. Is the board aware of investor groups who are buying multiple properties solely for the purpose of operating them as short-term rentals? And finally, citizens are here to help the board in addressing these numerous issues resulting from the commercial short-term rentals. Thank you for your time. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. All right. Mr. Hank Hoover, Hank Hoover.
Thank you. I'd like to speak critically about the proposed education budget. Each year, the state superintendent of schools for Virginia produces a very lengthy report. And among many other things, that report identifies the per pupil cost by school district. And the calculation of that cost is based on 5 cost factors. One is administration, instruction, safety, building maintenance, and transportation. So you take the total of those 5 costs and you divide them by the average number of students attending during the school year, and that gives you your per pupil cost. In fiscal 2005, Lancaster's per pupil cost was about not quite $8,500. That was 2% below the statewide average. In 2020, Lancaster's per pupil cost, according to the state superintendent's report, was just under $15,500. That was 22% higher than the statewide average. So that increase from $8,500 to $15,500 was an increase of 84%, which was more than twice the inflation rate. Now, what's interesting about this is that during the time that the per pupil cost was rising, the number of students in the Lancaster system decreased by 31%, and the number of teachers decreased by 27%. So we have students, number of students going down, number of teachers going down, and yet the cost going up. And the explanation of that is that the 5 categories of expenses that I just mentioned, administration, instruction, and so forth, increased. So those costs increased by 27%. Now, if the 2023 budget goes through, then the estimated per pupil cost is going to be $18,500. And that's optimistic. And that's optimistic because that assumes that the number of students in 2023 will equal the number of students in 2021, which was doubtful because the trend in Lancaster County for many years now has been down. So what have Lancaster taxpayers gotten for their dollars? Well, the school systems have had at least two major objectives. One is to achieve accreditation. The school system has not been able to do that, certainly not on a consistent basis and not without the lowering of standards from Richmond. The second major objective that they've had is to reduce or eliminate the achievement gap between black students and white students. Black students as a group in Lancaster County do not come close to passing the state SOL test. Okay. And so I think that for the taxpayers are not getting a bang for the buck. Costs are going up, the services are going down, the objectives are not being met.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Costello.
Charlie Costello, District 2. I was at the Planning Commission last week when they tabled the item regards our ordinance. And I felt they had a quorum, they were able to do other things and pass a comprehensive plan, and they should have taken the quorum and passed the ordinance on to you. What in effect they've done is delayed this until, for you, maybe June. Another lot can happen in the next 60 days. I think there needs to be a special session and so on. Mr. Foster had a package that he passed out, the last page of which, I don't know if you've seen it, deals with circles, 4-mile buffer around Dominion substations, only viable location for DG2. It has Ring Farm and it has Kilmarnock. It says nothing about what Waller substation will have, and if they put the Mary Point solar over here, and you do it, there's another substation. There's a substation down at Whitestone. I don't know if Windmill Point has substations or not. Jason, you'll have to tell us about that one. But coming down River Road, there are 3 substations. They're not indicated on here. You've got to be careful what is given you. It's all going to be what they want you to see. We've already experienced that. There was never any discussion of distributed line solar. The whole time that we were talking about solar, we only heard about Waller, and that was going to be a limit on what we could have here in this county. According to them, Waller was going to be it, and how is Mary Point going to be in here? Well, I think Dominion's already working on that to increase the thing up to 230. And that's the only way they can do. And I thank you for your thing. But I'll be glad to see what we can do about moving that ordinance up and do it more quickly. Have a session with the Planning Commission
and then move it on so you can do a public hearing at the end of the May session. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Costello. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak during the public session, public input session? Anyone online?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right, if not, then public input session is now closed. Okay, let's move on. VDOT?
How y'all doing this evening?
Good.
I think David sent y'all a report. Have any questions for me?
I just have one comment. Prior to Robert Harper's passing, they were going to remove some trees down on the edge of Cardinal Lane there. They took, on the other side of the road, on my side of the road, they took a tree off my property because it blocks the view. I continue to get, I see it every day, but people on Cardinal Lane are complaining about those pine trees that sit right there in the right-of-way on the left-hand side. And if Robert Harper said they were going to remove them after they removed mine, but then he of course passed away and they never done it. But I'm still getting complaints about that, so I'm wondering if you can take a look at those and see what can be done about.
Yeah, I'll take it. That's on Cardinal Drive?
Yep, it's right at the corner of Cardinal Lane and Aquin Road.
Okay. We had a conversation today. I don't even, so that would be roadside, and I think they're having a hard time getting some tree contractors right now to do
Okay.
it. But I'll take a look at it.
Okay,
See what we can
just
do.
put it back on your radar because it's a really blind spot coming out of that road, and cars whip down that road now, and it's really hard to see sometimes, and I'm afraid some of the older people on the road may get in an accident.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, sir.
And I know last month we said something about paving, but I just looked at the 2-week look ahead, and I know they're working in Northumberland now, so it's probably going to be a little bit longer than what we had said. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank y'all.
All right. All right, Broadband Authority. Ms. Thompson.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
I know, it's unusual. Anyway, it's all basically good news. The APB and Dominion project is moving along on schedule. We haven't any updates. They have questions to answer for us, so they'll be getting back to us soon. As far as the Batty project with the 4 counties, that one is definitely moving ahead. As a matter of fact, Breeze Line received a notice to proceed for construction for, I wrote it down, Teal Drive and Tyler Lane. This is 3 weeks ahead of schedule. So right now, they've got their equipment in place to keep going, and so far, so good, fingers crossed. And while I'm thinking about it, Mr. Lee just mentioned to me about an issue on one of the roads. A Breeze Line has got construction going. I would encourage you to tell people, and I know this is going to be broadcast, if they have questions, so they don't have to keep coming to each of you, get on our website. There's an area there to put in questions, concerns, problems, whatever. Or they can call, our emails for the individual members are there. They can write to one of us individually if they want, because it saves time, because we'll go right to Breeze Line and say, this is the issue. We may have some background information or whatever. So please encourage anybody who calls you, call us, and we'll answer their questions or find out what's going on. No problem.
I sent you one not too long ago, maybe he contacted you all.
On the website?
Yeah, I sent him to the website, and so told him if he had some broadband questions, that would be, to reach
Perfect.
out to you all would be the best answer to get the best and most up-to-date information.
I have hope for you, Jason. I won't talk about Mr. Palin.
I'm a lost cause.
Oh, no, you know.
I'm not, okay.
What else we got? One thing we mentioned earlier in our meeting with you when we did the budget conversations, that there are some homes that still seem to be unserved, and we didn't know if they would be. So we're talking to Breeze Line, and they've committed that they're going to go and service any home that is unserved. Now, this may mean if there are big groups, and we're still working on that 84, if there are big groups, we may be applying for a 2023 Batty grant with either Breeze Line or APB to make sure every house has access. so nobody will be left behind who wants to have broadband. The other piece of good news is Breezeline and, well, right now, APB has committed to participate in the LECAP program. I got to say this one out. It is the, where is it? Line Extension Customer Assistance Program. The Virginia General Assembly allocated $8 billion, I believe, to assist people in the low to moderate income. APB is going to participate. Breezeline said they're looking at it with the idea that they probably will participate. We're waiting to have that confirmed. If this goes into effect and they participate, this will be good for the lower income who can't afford the hookup, the drops. That's where you have a lot of expense, because there are programs to help them pay for the service they want. The drops is another issue, but if they are eligible for this program, this will assist them in paying for those drops, so they would have that, to have internet to their residents. The CARES Act on the fixed wireless project, 212 installations as of March 7th by BTS. The smart poles, each of the poles is operational through the BTS wireless service. Questions? I'm from New York, I can do this fast.
You're doing good, doing good.
Nothing else?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome very much.
Okay, public hearing, application for rezoning from C2 to commercial limited C1, Kellum Farms Market. Mr. Barnes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is an application for rezoning, as you stated, from C2 commercial to C1 by Kellum Farm Markets. This property is located off Irvington Road. This is within that complex of properties that you heard for rezoning last month. You heard Big Red Barn and Noblet Ware Peoples request a similar request from C2 to C1. This advertisement was featured in the Rappahannock Record and also posted on the county website. County staff do not have any written objections tonight for you to this property. One new item we do have is a list of proffers from the property owner. And I think you guys have copies of those in front of you. We do. The items that are highlighted and struck are what the applicant has proffered to remove from the permitted uses. Mr. Kirkendall is here to represent the applicant, and he can answer your further questions. At this time, I can answer any questions you might have of county staff on this matter.
All right, before we open up for a public hearing, does anyone want to ask Mr. Kirkendall any questions or anything? Mr. Kirkendall, I would like to ask some questions. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, what is the, okay, I don't see any planned use for this.
There's not a planned use. This is a stretch of 4 parcels. The 2 parcels that Kellum Farms currently runs were already C1. This is an adjoining strip that is C2. For future expansion, we wanted to convert it to C1. My property coming up next is the adjoining property to that, which was also C2. There are no immediate plans. We felt for future expansion, we would like to go ahead and take care of it while that whole stretch will now be C1.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, there's no existing structure, no existing changes in the immediate future.
All right, let me ask you one question.
Yes, sir.
Looking at your exemptions here, where you're looking at proffers.
Yes, sir.
8-1-38 says disposal of dredge spoils with a special exception. Would you mind striking that? That's dispose of dredge soils with a special exception?
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that, but I'd like to step out and make a phone call to speak up for Mr. Kellum if I could real quick.
Okay.
Well, it shouldn't take me but just a second.
All right. Okay, now, you mind if we go ahead and open up public?
Yes, sir.
input?
No, that's fine.
All right, all right. All right.
Can I ask, maybe Mr. Barnes, what would be an example of a dredge spoil?
Dredge spoils are not permitted, but in a few districts in the county, and every single example I can see of that, they require a special exception. Somebody at some point did some dumping of dredge spoils, and I guess there was an attempt to regulate that. We have, in the past 2 years, I have brought to you all at least one special exception to request permission to dispose of dredge spoils. Generally, that's going to be where somebody has deep into harbor or a boat slip and they have a lot of muddy material and it needs to go somewhere upland to be dumped to de-water, if you will. Later on, that can be reused, but I think the offense comes from occasionally that material is really smelly and really nasty, and I think regulating it is probably not a bad idea from a land use standpoint. How offensive it may or may not be is in question. I have a feeling, and we'll see what Mr. Kellum says, but I have a feeling that being that the Kellums are in the seafood business, there's probably a blurry line between what one person might consider dredge spoil and one person might consider oyster shells. Because some dredge spoil is mostly oyster shells. So I think if he says he's reluctant, that may be because he doesn't want to be prevented from dumping oyster shells. But that's a guess. But the special exception process still requires a public hearing. Leaving that on there is not the end of the world. If it were a big property, say 50 acres, 20 acres, I would be really reluctant if that was not struck.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Due to a business relationship that I have through my CPA job, I'm going to recuse myself from any discussion or the vote on this with Mr. Kellum.
Okay, so noted. Yes, sir. What's your?
He doesn't have a problem with that, and I don't either, if you want to go ahead and highlight them off as well.
All right, we can strike that then.
He did want me to let you know that he set me in his place so his public speaking wouldn't be critiqued.
I got you. All right. Tell him, thank you.
And now you know I did talk to him.
Yeah, all right, right.
I guess one concern I got, that there's absolutely no plan for this property.
No, sir. No, sir, other than the expansion of what exists there in the future.
And your purpose then for bringing it forth then for changes?
I'm sorry?
So your purpose then for bringing it forth before us for change is what?
Well, for Tommy's instance, it's for future expansion, whether it be parking or greenhouses or whatever that may go with the farm market and sell it. For mine, I was in support of the neighboring ones being changed. I was the only odd one there. I felt it was a thing to do to make the whole, actually from across the road, those two parcels on the corner, the whole road would be consistent.
Okay, I see.
And if Mr. Kellum ever needed extra entryway, parking area, what have you, for the market, then it would be available for that.
All right.
So,
Any more questions? Any more questions?
No, no more questions, but it is my district.
Thank you.
But,
Thank you.
and so I do feel that consistency is good. I know there's not a plan in place, but it does put the owners in a position that they can expand if needed.
I would say it's within the primary growth corridor and adjacent to other C2 or C1 properties, so I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's open it up for public hearing. All right. This is open up for public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any input from the audience? Anybody online?
See if anybody signed up for it.
Oh, okay. Anybody online? Okay. All right, then. Public hearing is now closed. All right, so you make your comment again. I want to consider what you're saying.
My comment is about consistency. is that,
For the land.
for the land, for all those parcels, and it does give Kellum's Farm, and I do a lot of business at Kellum's Farms. I like the oysters. In fact, I was there today. I bought a bushel of oysters today. But I know that, just speaking with Lynn and Tommy, I know that they do want to expand, and they've mentioned the greenhouse, and I think it's a wonderful thing, yeah, having fresh food there, fresh produce, and I don't have any problems with it.
Mr. Betts?
I'm in support of it. I don't see an issue. I think it's a good growing business. We've already changed the one for Big Reds, and these are other adjoining properties that were already C1. Moving them to C2 is in the primary growth corridor, and they're all very successful and good growing businesses and fairly young people that we need here to do those types of things. So I think the board needs to be supportive of that, and if the motion is made, I'll support it.
Let me throw out one more thing. I'm just thinking, and want everybody to consider what I'm thinking. All right, would this be setting a precedence if we did this? I mean, you've been on the board for a while, you've been on the board for a while, I've been on a number of years. I don't remember ever approving one that didn't have a plan. Are we setting a precedence if we do this? And are we willing to allow it?
I mean, it's a valid point, but I mean, on these particular parcels, I don't know that we have too many other similar C2 adjacent contiguous lands where we've already approved at least one zoning upzone along that primary corridor. Brian, do you know of any more in the primary growth corridor like this?
When you approved the zoning change for Connemara last year, very similar, there was no site plan for that. Mr. Jones did indicate that he desired to add on to the building, but you did not have a site plan. And I know that that's been brought to your attention by a member of the public, especially with regards to section 16-3, where it states plan and development required for all industrial rezonings. The county shall receive a plan of development signed by the property owner and applicant for any commercial, industrial, multifamily land use classification change. That being said, one could argue on this property and the next property, there are structures. So it's already developed. It is also not a rezoning from residential to commercial. It's already commercial. They're just changing the designation within that. The third thing I would say is that as a staff person, you receive applications all day long. You try to do your best to counsel the applicant on having the best, most robust plan they can, because it's easier to enforce later, it's good for the county, and it does set a nice high standard, which I think is a great thing for the county in general. That being said, some people want to run what they brung, as they say, in the racing world, and that's fine. If they're willing to attempt to present that, then that's okay. The fourth thing I would say, and I think I've heard Jim Cornwell say this to you all, and I agree, it is the prerogative of an elected board to interpret their own ordinances, and I didn't have that highlighted here, but it does say that elsewhere in your zoning ordinance, that the Board of Supervisors interprets their ordinance. So if you interpret this request to be not requiring this particular section to apply in this case, I think that's okay for you to make that decision. I know the word precedent got used. I took one semester of a law class at Virginia Tech and realized that was not the career for me. Thank God. But I remember that professor saying, you don't set precedent unless you're a judge. Only judges set precedent. So, if you interpret this case this way and another case differently, every request stands on its own merits or fails on its own merits. I don't think that anybody can say, well, you don't need a site plan anymore because you didn't need one at this case. There's a house on this site and there's a house on your next hearing site. If you wanted to operate within that, and one of the uses, by the way, in C1 is for a nursery. So as a nurse, I'd love to have a nursery one day where I had a house with the office in it, but most of the selling would take place outside. You don't really need Article 22 site plan for that, more than likely. So there are cases where a C1 use could not require, and that's up to your interpretation. If you had a 20-acre site that was already zoned A2 and somebody was asking for a C1, my advice to you as your staff person would be that you should probably deny that request unless you have a site plan for that, because that's a big area, that's a big change. I think it's reasonable to be concerned. So hope I didn't muddy the waters. but those are my-
You actually helped me out with the setting the precedent, because that's what I was thinking the same thing. I said, we're not setting the precedent because each one of these that come before us has to stand on its own, and we have to, evaluate that as they come along. That's why, and that's what I heard Brian say just then.
I had thoughts and I wanted to throw them out there for you to consider and for you to get answers to, so I'll support whatever you put on the table.
So you would like a motion from me?
Yes, sir.
Do I need the parcel number, or am I just making a motion for Kellum Farms LLC? Is that proper?
Yeah.
It's 28-214.
Okay. I'd like to make the motion to rezone parcel number
-214.
28-214 from C2 to commercial limited C1.
Going from limited to C1.
including
Going
proffers.
from limited to C1, gotcha. Okay, including the proffers.
All right, you've heard the motion. Any questions? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous vote, one, well, yeah, 4, and 1 abstain.
One abstain.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Okay, got that one done, all right. The next one, rezoning from C2 commercial to C1. Mr. Barnes?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This request is similar to your last one in that it is a request from C2 Commercial Limited to C1 Commercial by Kenneth Kirkendall and Andrea Banks for a .693 acre parcel with improvements identified as tax map 28-213, located off Route 200, Irvington Road in District 5. This rezoning was also heard by the Planning Commission and comes to you with the similar proffers that you just heard. In fact, I think we presented those to you. Okay, yeah, we did get those up there. Sorry, we moved some stuff around before you guys got in here, so I wasn't 100% sure you had them. This property, since we just talked about it, I'll kind of dovetail into that. This property is immediately next door. As I've already indicated to you previously, it does have a structure on the property. It's a dwelling now. It's a house that is a prior non-conforming use. Normally, you cannot have a dwelling structure on a C2. However, this was occupied before that time, so it's what we consider a prior non-conforming use. This request, just like the last one, does come to you with no site plan. However, the previous caveats apply to that.
Okay.
If you have any questions of us, this request was advertised. We do not have any written objections to this exact article to present to you since your memo.
Mr. Kirkendall, no, you? All right.
Yes, sir.
All right. Basically, what you said on Mr. Kellum's, you say for yourself, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, would you be willing also to strike the dredge?
Yes, sir.
All right, we strike that, so noted.
And I've already signed the other ones, and I've asked them to go ahead and put that on it as well.
Okay, all right. Any questions, gentlemen, while we have Mr. Kirkendall at the podium?
Okay.
Good.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
I'm fine on this.
You fine with this one? All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Public hearing is now open for this particular project here. Any input from the audience? No input. All right. Online? No, sir. All right. Public hearing now closed. I'll obtain a motion. Basically, we already discussed it.
I'd like to move to rezone the parcel adjacent to the existing Kellum Farm Market from C2 to C1 to include the proffers.
Okay, you've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Okay. Moving to the next one. Okay,
Speak on this for 3.
this is for 3. Public hearing for 3. Mr. Gill?
Mr. Chairman, this is the public hearing for your proposed FY23 overall county budget. Glenn, if you can give me PC2, I'll put the synopsis page up on the screen. You all have had 5 budget work sessions up till this point. This is the public hearing. You cannot take any action tonight. The Code of Virginia requires that you wait at least 7 days before considering approval of the proposed budget with or without modification. You all have previously scheduled your regular May meeting of May 26th at 7 p.m. as the date that you will consider adoption of this budget. In those previous work sessions, we've gone over the fact that you'll see increases under the taxes and other local funds, but that does not reflect any increase in tax rates. That is basically from increased values of personal property and improvements that have been picked up on during the past year by the Commissioner of Revenue's office for building improvements that have been done on properties. So these increases in revenues under taxes does not reflect any increase in tax rates. You all have directed me to advertise the existing tax rates for the county. And let me just explain that there's no public hearing tonight on the tax rates because Lancaster adopts an ordinance approving tax rates, and ordinances require 2 weeks of advertisements. And when you all directed me on April 14th, I did not have 2 weeks to advertise that. So, but you will have your public hearing on the tax rates at your May 26th meeting, but you can adopt an ordinance the same night that you have your public hearing. So you can do both at your May 26th meeting, adopt the budget and adopt the tax rate ordinance. So Mr. Hoover spoke earlier about the school budget. You all have already adopted your school budget. The school budget numbers are included in the overall budget for informational purposes. You don't need to go back and adjust those.
I'd be remiss, but his categories of budget categories were incorrect.
They were, but I didn't think it was necessary to go down that road. Under the expenditures for the broad categories here, the main increase overall is an equal salary increase of 6.57%. That is what the schools have been approved for. Now, their teachers will get an additional step, but overall, full-time employees, a 6.57% increase, and that is reflected among county employees as well. There's also $235,000 in this general government line for a general reassessment to be performed in calendar year 2023. Under the courts, that's basically salaries. Public safety reflects 2 additional positions in the sheriff's office budget. As you know, you approved 2 additional dispatcher positions at your January meeting, which is in FY22, but you also approved 2 more beginning July 1 in FY23. So 4 total new positions under the sheriff's office budget for public safety. And that's mandated by the state requirement that there be 2 dispatchers on duty 24 hours a day, basically for telecommunications, CPR, should that be needed. Because once CPR is started, whether, by the dispatcher coaching someone over the phone, they can't leave that phone, they can't answer another call. So that's why there has to be 2 dispatchers on duty all the time. There's also some modest increases in EMS, and so that's the bulk of that increase there. Public Works is an increase in the solid waste and refuse. We all know that the volume has been increasing over the years, and that's reflected there. Health and welfare, you all chose to up some of your contributions to some of the non-governmental organizations. And a large portion of this is also under the social services. The local contribution to social services was up this year, so that's where that number comes from. The reason community development has a decrease is because the Broadband Authority requested FY23 budget was much less than their FY22 requested budget. So bottom line is that the fund reserve balance at the end of FY23 is projected to be over $6 million, which we've talked about before is the target number that the treasurer has said would keep us from having to get a short-term revenue anticipation note to help with cash flow until tax collections start coming in November. That's almost 16% of your expenditures. You know, the board adopted a policy back in 2018, I believe, to not let the fund balance fall below 7%. So our fund balance is pretty good as reflected in the most recent audit and attested to by Paul Lee with Robinson Farmer Cox in January when he came before you. So even though the projected fund balance will decrease by a little over $1 million, you're still above that $6 million figure. That is the operating budget. Your capital improvement expenditures are up quite a bit for FY23 projected, and you've got a couple of big items on here. $8 million, which is the first of 3 years projected for the new middle school, high school. You all have recently purchased 57 acres of the Hills Quarter property adjacent to the ballpark for new schools, and that's being reflected here. Another big item is $3.2 million projected for the federally mandated P25 digital radio upgrade. You were briefed on that at the April 14th meeting. Here is the $500,000 that Mr. Julian spoke about earlier that you all voted to put into the capital improvement budget at your April 14th meeting. So bottom line for FY23 is $13,093,329. As I stated, I believe on April 14th, I think the next step in this process after the approval of the budget in May would be to have your financial advisors, Davenport Public Finance, to come probably to the June meeting and brief the board on possible financings to service this amount of debt. So that's the budget in a nutshell. And as I said, you've already worked on this for 5 meetings. If you have any other questions, I'll be glad to answer them at this time. Again, hold the public hearing tonight, but take no action until your May 26th meeting.
All right. Gentlemen, before I open it up for the public hearing to the floor for comments, do you have anything you want to say or ask or whatever? All right. All right. The floor is now open for comments from Mr. Let me slow down. Mr. Costello has signed up to speak, sir.
Kelly Costello again. I just want to echo Al Pollard's thing. I'm glad we're finally getting here. As a member of the Facilities Committee of the schools, it's been how many years we've been going through this? And God, it's great. This is what we need. There was one person I talked to who said he wanted to see us reduce the rate for property, the tax. I think we ought to wait, if you're going to do anything, until after we do a reassessment and find out where we really are. There's a lot of money that's going to be coming out of here, and we are covering it. We're doing well. Let's keep it going. That's my only thing.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone online? Public hearing is now closed.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for approval of the consensus docket.
All right, y'all heard the motion. Are you in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote.
And as soon as I get the salaries up here, we'll make a motion on that. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the invoices for the month of April in the amount of $633,320.07. Total payroll, $373,219.63, for a grand total of $1,010,539.70, of which ARPA funds included $316.46.
All right, y'all heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous vote. Okay. Kilmarnock Lancaster Volunteer Rescue Squad. Mr. Gill.
Mr. Chairman, the Kilmarnock Lancaster Volunteer Rescue Squad has requested or is asking the Board of Supervisors to contribute $15,000 of ARPA funding toward the purchase of an advanced life support training mannequin. That mannequin would be available for use by all EMS agencies in the county. This expense is allowable under ARPA guidelines for public safety. You received a little over $1 million in August of 2021. To date, we've spent $442,847 of those funds. You've obligated another $15,025 for the Sheriff's Office purchase of a radar messaging sign. You've got unspent, unobligated first-round ARPA funds of $571,882. So you have money there to grant this request. You know that the county will receive the second round of ARPA funding, an equal amount in August of this year. The board has previously earmarked $575,000 for the All Points Broadband Dominion Energy Broadband Project. That money will be due by the end of July this year. The Broadband Authority is currently reviewing the contract, and once that contract has been approved, then we can pay our share.
And that's coming out of the money we already have?
It can be split. It can come out of what's left from the first round of ARPA funds, and then the balance can be taken out of the second round.
And how much did you say we had remaining in the first round?
First round is $571,882.
So a little over $500,000.
A little over $500,000, yes. And our EMS chief, Matt Smith, prepared a memo that was in your package, and he obviously thinks this is a worthwhile purchase. The Kilmarnock Lancaster Volunteer Rescue Squad is also securing a grant of $15,000 to take care of the balance. This advanced life support mannequin costs $30,000. So,
Gentlemen, I would just say that we just had a major fire and demonstrated the value of our volunteers and our public service sectors. I will support this.
I will also. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
You ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the funding request for the $15,000 to, so that the rescue squad can buy the mannequin.
All right, you've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Okay, it passes. All right. That takes care of that. Board reports. Do you have any board reports?
Mr. Chairman, I have an appointment I'd like to make.
Okay, sir.
I'd like to reappoint Mr. Cecil Little to the Wetlands Board.
All right. You've heard that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous. He's appointed.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other board reports? County Administrator report.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a whole lot tonight. Hopefully, we'll get away with a short meeting for a change, because there's been some long ones in the past. I will just say that we did close on the 212 Carter's Cove property last Wednesday. So that is official. The county now owns that site for public access. So we're making progress. The wheels of government turn slow, but we're making progress, and we'll get the RFP out for architectural and engineering services, so that we can, once the Public Access Committee, has a a sketch to present to you all. We can pass that along to either the engineer or an architect to get something on paper and get it, you know, in a form that we could go out to bid for.
The Thomas Landing site. I think we had one bid for that.
We've had one contractor to look at this, and Brian has created a package that we've been giving to all the dock builders that come in for permits, and asked them to give us, you know, a bid if they'd like to work on this. We anticipate it's going to be less than $100,000, so all we've got to do is get 3 bids, and then we can proceed. All the permits are in place.
Let's say we don't get 3 bids.
I might have to ask Jim Cornwell on that one if he's still online.
Ms. Conwell, you online?
I'm here.
Yes, sir.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. If we don't get 3 bids, can we move forward on the one that we have?
Without an RFP, Jim, under small purchase, if we don't have 3 bids and we've tried, can we go with 1?
It's not preferable. I would support an advertisement in the paper if we haven't already. And then if we don't get it, I think we can go with the 1.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I think we probably should move forward with, because we've been doing this a long time with this site, move forward with advertising it in the paper. And we need to put a timeline on this.
I've had a couple constituents from my area, since that in my area, contact me in the last month inquiring where we are. And I talked with Don about it. So it is interest to have that in place as soon as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've got to advertise for
And-
planning
and that-
commission tomorrow, so I can get it in.
Put it in tomorrow. Okay, good.
Let me say this, the advertising paper would give us support if we went with the 1 bidder and saying